Most manufacturers attach the engine to the frame, but Royal Enfield put the engine inside the frame. Well, that's a little bit too confident, isn't it? Because the frame and the engine are bolted at three very specific points, and these points are responsible for the bike either behaving good or behaving bad. Even the side stand has been engineered with precision. And on the other hand, there are 40,000 plus riders on road. Most of them have been facing similar issues. So the real question is, if the motorcycle has been created so precisely, why are most of people facing similar issues? What went wrong, Royal Enfield? Don't worry, I'm here to spill the beans. This is Motor Reporter and my name is Akul Singh. Most motorcycles use the frame to carry the engine. The frame is the structure and the engine hangs inside it. But Royal Enfield did something different here. Royal Enfield used something called a stressed member architecture. Think of it like bike having a skeleton. The frame is the skeleton and the engine, which is the organ, fits inside the skeleton. The Sherpa 450 engine is bolted to the steel frame at exactly 3 spots, one at both the sides and one at the bottom. And all these 3 points have very specific bolt, which has a very specific size, a very specific washer, and a very specific tightening angle. The engine carries the load of the structure and it is part of the chassis. Efficient, compact, and light, but precise. Very precise. And the problem with precise frames is it has memory. It remembers what gets inside it. And if you change what goes inside it, everything starts acting differently. Now let's take a look at a small example to understand everything. There is a shelf and there is a weight that is kept on a shelf. If you keep the weight in the center of the shelf will be able to maintain it. The force and the energy on the shelf will be evenly distributed, and the shelf will be able to handle it. But if you put the weight at either end of the shelf, the force will change its path and the entire shelf will start acting differently. Same weight, different paths, and different outcome. That is the load path. That is called the load path. On the Himalayan 450, those 3 points, those are the load paths. Everything that is connected to the motorcycle through these 3 points define how the force will flow, how the load will flow through the frame. This brings me to a very specific example where we saw the chassis of some of the Himalayan 450s had broken, snapped. First incident, Assam. A rider went over a rumble strip at a normal road speed. The frame snapped. Second incident, Tamil Nadu. Rider was on his way from Chennai to Hyderabad. Both the mounts had failed. Well, Royal Enfield investigated about the entire case and they found that both the motorcycles had broken from the same point. And the culprit was they had used an aftermarket crash guard which used a different bolt and a different washer. This is the exact reason why this very rare incident happened, but it is so important because it tells us about the structural integrity of the motorcycle. Also, Autocar had done a separate video on this, and I think they had also released an article where they said this should be told to the customers, and I agree. This should be a caution, a big red caution whenever someone is coming to buy this motorcycle. And let me be very clear about this. This is not a weak frame, but this is a very precise frame. And you should not be meddling with this. Older Himalayan 411 also had the same issue, and Royal Enfield was criticized a lot because when that bike had similar cases, they had responded, well, not so early. And the fix was 4,700 rupees only, which in this case was the OEM crash guard. Now let's talk about one of my favorite parts about this motorcycle, which is the side stand. The great drama that is associated with this lean angle of the side stand. Now this is deliberate and has been told by Royal Enfield. Given the stress member architecture and the weight of the motorcycle, which is 190 kilos plus, this lean angle was deliberate. But the issue is when the bike is under load, which means it has a lot of luggage, it has people riding it, and when the fuel is filled, because this is a top-heavy motorcycle, this lead angle becomes an issue, and it has been documented well enough. Some bikes stand on their side stand. This bike wants to meet the ground, wants to rest. All right, now let's talk about something which is and has become one of the major flaws of this engine, which is the vibration. Now, I would not completely blame Royal Enfield for this, because eventually they have used a single-cylinder engine. It has a longish bore, longer than the KTM and especially longer than the 350s, but it's still a single-cylinder engine. And the way the character of the engine is, I think that's the reason why there is vibration. But there are instances where it has been documented enough that there is a very specific band where this vibration feels the most. And I've read enough on Reddit and on YouTube, and there have been a lot of videos where they say somewhere close to 4,500 to 55 to 6,000 RPM, the bike is too vibey and it just becomes too difficult. And from 80 kilometers to 100 kilometers, which is also a very good pace of riding on Indian roads, the vibration really pops out. And this is one of the most funniest quote that I've ever heard. It is like a constant companion. This is not just a random complaint. It's not like one out of many riders said this, but this is a well-documented fact. And I've made a video on vibration. You can go and watch it to understand what are the things that you can do to do away or at least minimize the inherent vibration character of this motorcycle. Now let's talk about the top heaviness of this motorcycle and also the weight of the motorcycle. At 196 kilograms and the motorcycle being top heavy, here is where the issue starts to crop up. The dramatic lean of the side stand, the bike is top heavy, and the bike in itself is heavier than at least the competition. And with the load on it, with pillion, and especially if you're going on a long rides and there is luggage, this becomes an issue because making the bike go from a lean angle to a standstill, this is the problem. On the highways, when the bike is running at a constant speed, there is no issue. In fact, the bike is very stable and the suspension that we'll talk about is absolutely brilliant. But at tight corners, at parking lots, at city rides, this is where the bike, the entire thing, the weight, the lean angle and stuff becomes a problem. Now also add to it the seat height. The lowest seat height is 825 mm and the highest is 845. For short riders, this becomes a problem because the seats are wide. They're good cushiony, very good support to the thighs. But when you add all this as an experience for short riders, for females who prefer Himalayan, by the way, a few of the touch points that the owners constantly nag about is the fit and finish, the instrument cluster, the switch gears, the stock mirrors. And between all this, two problems stand out for me. Number one is the navigation. Well, nothing says an adventure with your phone being constantly on and that small circle dash, and then the fuel gauge. Well, that has been a constant sore for the Himalayan riders. The fuel gauge does not show accurate readings, and that becomes a part of the problem especially when people are going on longer trips, and that's the reason why they have bought that motorcycle. So the Himalayan 450 is a very, very capable motorcycle, and I love it. I love it for the kind of chassis it has, for the kind of suspension it has, for the kind of seat comfort it has. None of the competition, none of the KTMs and the Bajajes can even come close to it. The Sherpa 450 is one of Royal Enfield's best works. The longest bore and the single-cylinder engine, and with the evolution that it has had, I think it's one of the best engines in the Royal Enfield's arsenal. And off-roading capabilities, you can use it for everything. You can use it for long travels, off-roads, city rides. You go with your family, you get a pillion at the rear seat. It just works brilliant. Now, my problem is, and my intention of creating this video is, you understand the honest version of the flaws. Not the marketing gimmick, not a peer review that an owner has done and saying that the motorcycle is great. But for your use case, you need to know the real picture. And one more thing, the Sherpa 450 also shares the same engine, the same 3 bolt positions, and the same criticality what this bike holds. That, my friend, is the next video. We're going to review the Gorilla. Till the next time we see each other. Ciao.